President Trump announced earlier this week that the United States will recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. It's a major shift from decades of U.S. policy suggesting that the city's status could be decided by peace negotiations. Jerusalem is home to Jewish, Christian, and Muslim holy sites and has long been at the center of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Well, the decision sparked widespread protests in the region. U.S. embassies and consulates were put on high alert after the announcement, and the U.S. issued a warning to Americans abroad to watch out for violent demonstrations. Sharren Haskel is a member of Israel's Knesset and a member of the Likud party. She's also a member of the Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee. She joins me now from Tel Aviv. Thank you for joining us. You must have known that the rockets coming in from the Gaza Strip, multiple rockets today. Was the Israeli government prepared for the violence that came with this decision?
Well, unfortunately, throughout our history and in recent years as well, every now and then we have violent eruptions and terrorist acts or rockets. Even 2 weeks ago, a month ago, we had the same situation. So we're not on a high alert, but we are paying attention to the details to make sure that any kind of violent riots will not arise.
Just a short time ago, the leader of the militant group Hezbollah in Lebanon declared his support for a Palestinian uprising, an intifada. Do you believe that an intifada is coming to Israel?
Well, we don't know. Our assessment is at this moment not. Our security and police forces are ready for the Friday prayers, but it's not out of the ordinary that we have them on alert. And so we don't have yet any kind of special alert. Don't forget, this was a just and a courageous statement that Donald Trump has, the President of the United States, had brought. This is something that we continue to ask for. The Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has asked that from the President, Donald Trump. This is what Trump has promised in his campaign. And right now we are asking for more countries as well to follow the United States steps as well with this recognition.
And it looks like the Czech Republic has said that they might consider moving their embassy as well to Jerusalem following this announcement. I want to ask you, though, particularly about President Trump's language in this speech. It was deliberate. He didn't call for Jerusalem as the undivided capital, potentially leaving the door open for the Palestinians to also claim it as their capital. Would the Israeli government accept Palestinian control of part of Jerusalem?
Well, this is an important step towards peace because any kind of agreement that will be signed, any kind of agreement that doesn't include Jerusalem as the capital of Israel will not actually be able to come into the reality. I think this is what Trump understands as well, what the President of the United States understands too. I think that since the 90s, different presidents have stated that they are wavering, signing the waiver because they want to keep it open. But I think that, coming and deciding that, making the first step towards the reality and what's actually happening now. I mean, Jerusalem has always been the capital of Israel since '49. It was declared as the capital of the new state of Israel as well. Any kind of negotiation that has been through the past or through the future speaks about the 67 lines. And so the fact that any kind of agreement that might be signed will include Israel, will include Jerusalem in Israeli hands as well, under Israeli sovereignty. I think that Trump acknowledged that as well and understand that this is the first step to bring the Palestinian into the table. Time after time, they tried to avoid negotiations. Time after time, they refused any kind of peace agreement, any kind of deal, any kind of concessions. And how did the international community reacted? They actually gave them different statements, more funds. They actually gave them more benefits. And so they didn't have any kind of reason to actually sit down and start this negotiation. The international community, just in the recent 2-3 years as well, has passed one-sided resolutions about Jerusalem, if it's through the UNESCO, if it's through the Security Council at the United Nations, that stated a one-sided statement about Jerusalem towards the Palestinians. And so I think that today, when Trump is drawing the line and saying, okay, if we're not willing to sit down and negotiate and make concession, there's a red line, and we're starting to advancing, with the reality of what we have here today in Israel.
You also sit on the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee in the Knesset there in Israel. Is the sense among your colleagues that this will bring the Jewish state closer to peace?
Absolutely. This will burst any kind of illusion of the Palestinian, that maybe one day Jerusalem will be under the sovereignty of Palestinians. If that thing will ever happen, it means that Jerusalem will not be the city that it is today. Jerusalem is a city that is free to all religion. It is open to anyone to practice their religion. And this had happened only under Israeli sovereignty. Understanding the security measures, the fact of how Israel is actually guarding this city like that, make you understand that for us Israelis as well, Jerusalem is a non-negotiable issue as well. So if the Palestinians now also are bursting their illusions and understanding that, I think that maybe they'll be willing to sit down and maybe break a deal as well.
Sharren, your Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, is facing a whirl of scandal investigations, looking into corruption in particular. Do you believe that he will remain in office in the coming months?
Look, Netanyahu will remain in office through this term and through the next election. I completely believe in he's innocent. These investigations has happened time after time, and many of them are dropping slowly. It's unfortunate, I think, that the opposition, instead of trying to use democratic tools, are starting to use different facilities like the High Supreme Court, like the police, in order to try and change the democratic decision of the people of Israel. But I do think that within a few months, I hope so, that everything will clear out and will continue to work as normally.
Sharren Haskel, thank you so much for coming to us from Israel.